Welcome to the MaxBet Podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything gaming. I'm Landon Jones, here with Mike McKiskey. Let's get started.
What's up, man? Episode 31, Video Central. How goes it, brother?
It's going well, man. I'm pretty excited about our new video version of MaxBet Podcast for 2021.
Yeah, man.
We have made it, and we're bringing the video to you. So
yeah, brother. Hey, how was your New Year? Did you have a good New Year? I mean, I live in the suburbs, so I've been boring. I stayed home, but you're right in the heart of downtown. Did you do anything fun, or you stayed indoors?
No, I was gonna go to Arizona. But I decided that I didn't want to start 2021 with COVID-19.
Yeah.
So I stayed home and just reorganized my whole house, cleaned everything, getting rid of some stuff that just sits around my house, and just getting ready to crush 2021. The roaring 20s. How about you, man?
Yeah, that's it. Nothing, man. We didn't do much for the New Year. Like, we just hung out, and I think we ended up celebrating on Mountain Time. I'm going to be honest with you. I think I closed my eyes around 11, and that was it. See you later. Wake up next year. But it was fun. I mean, we hung out, watched some movies. Kids were sleeping, so nothing crazy, man. Believe me, I'm far away from the strip and all the parties on New Year's, because that's just that's a circus I don't need.
What age is it when kids stay up and want to celebrate the New Year? Because I remember as a kid, like 5, we'd go out and bang pots and pans, and but.
Yeah, if you have a tradition like that, 5 makes sense. I don't think my kids who are less than 5 would have made it. Like, I'm not entirely sure they could have stayed up even if we would have let them. I'm assuming it's really up to the parents, and then it really just becomes, can your kids make it? Like, so I would have assumed 6 or 7, but I'm sure there's 3-year-olds that can go the distance, and there's 8-year-olds that call it a night. So who knows? But I think it's really up to whatever the parents decide at that point.
So we're done with Christmas and New Year's. And for you, that's a crazy time in your house because your son's birthday is the day after Christmas, right?
Correct statement. Yeah, that's always nuts, man. So I do the thing where I just take all of Christmas down, and then I get, not just me, but my wife and I put up all the birthday stuff. So by the time he wakes up on 12/26, it's see you later Christmas, welcome to, and this year it's race car birthday, right? So there's cars, we had a racetrack going around the house that he could run and drive his cars on. I mean, it was fun, but it's a lot of work. So by the 27th, I sleep. That's it. That's just time for rest. The big man hits the chair and doesn't get up for a little while.
That's why you don't make it to New Year's.
Yeah, that's for sure. Now, what's today? The 4th. So we're good to go there. So that'll be the day that I'm back in action and feeling good about it. But
so speaking of the new year, what is a New Year's resolution? Just let's do one. We'd be here all day if we went through all our resolutions.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna lose the same 15 pounds I lose every year. But nice. No, it's lose it, put it back on. But no, I think for me it's really about focus, right? And it's about really identifying what are the priorities, in all areas, like so work, family, relationships, right? Different hobbies. Because for me, I can easily get distracted and easily be a guy that's like, well, I'm gonna be a good dancer. It's like, no, I'm not going to be a good dancer. Stop wasting energy trying to dance well. Right. So that's the kind of thing I just ignore that and then try to focus on certain things. So for me, it's really about focus and lining up some priorities and just sticking to, a handful of things instead of trying to do everything. What about yourself?
Focus is for sure a goal of mine. I'm trying to steal your,
no, it's good.
Your answer. But for me, my focus is going to be decluttering. So I've come to realize that I have a lot of things that I don't need or use.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to try to simplify myself, which was kind of brought up through COVID. I mean, you spend a lot of time at home and you're just looking at things and your drawers are full and you're like, why do I have all this stuff? My closet's full of clothes that I haven't worn for 3 years.
Yeah.
So there's someone out there that I could give that to that would really appreciate it. So I'm going to declutter, and just kind of simplify things for 2021. And yeah, that's kind of my goal.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like in pandemic times, we did like a month in, we did every room, like we re-clean and organize. And it was like, all right, been here a month now. We should probably figure this out. And then it's like 8 months in, you're going, this shit is still going on. We need another look at it. Cause we thought the pandemic was only going to be like 2-3 months. here we are almost a year. I mean, what is it, 9 months now? If you figure we started in March, it's different. Like you adjust your COVID life a little differently.
Yeah. I wonder how, the show Hoarders.
Yeah.
I wonder how much that's going to increase. I wonder how many hoarders have been created during the pandemic because everybody's just chilling at home collecting shit.
Yeah, I don't know, man. And I don't know at what point your junk pile becomes dangerous, right? That's the other thing. Because you watch that show and that's a whole different class of people, man. And it's like they got mountains of stuff and they just sleep in it, right? You go, oh, that's my pet rat. Don't mind him. It's like, how is that your life? But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully not too many. Hopefully everybody's doing what we're doing, just cleaning up, keeping it easy.
So outside of your personal goals, what are you most excited about in 2021? And that could be, what are you excited to see happen, or what are you kind of looking forward to outside of your personal?
Yeah, man, I'll be excited to get back to a life where you don't have to think so much about how close you are to everybody. You know what I mean? Like I'm always a big handshake and hug guy when I meet people or I see people, go out there. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that a little bit. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is just being able to be a little more social. Like I feel like I'm still more introverted generally. Like I don't mind being by myself, but this is a little extreme on that, right? Like it's good to just get out with the boys and hang out and, chop it up. And I'd love to see that. So I think that's probably my number one thing. And I'm hoping it comes sooner than later. What about yourself, man?
Yeah. I'm excited to get back to a schedule.
Yeah.
So it's just, California, they shut everything down. They're like, we're open, we're shut, we're open, we're shut. So I just, like you, I can't wait to get back into a normal work routine.
Just wake up and go, what day is it?
Yeah, exactly. You wake up on Saturday, you're like, I gotta work. Oh, wait, it's Saturday.
I don't know what day it is. Yeah, just keep grinding.
Well, that's great, man. So who are we interviewing today? I'm excited.
You speak about goals, or you speak about resolutions. I think a lot of people go, I want to be this guy. Yeah. I'm going to be old Richard Haddrill, Dick Haddrill, as we call him, he was the CEO of Bally for the longest time. That's where I met him, back when I first really started in the vendor side of gaming. He's the chairman of the board. He's back to CEO. He helped sell the thing to Psy Games. Now he's a investor serving as board member and chairman on probably half a dozen companies. Those are the ones we know about anyway. So he's a legend, man. So that's who we get to interview. And I'm stoked to talk to him about just different things. I mean, what's it like being CEO in troubling times? I mean, he's went through multiple company turnarounds and, and then talking to him offline, he's like, dude, I'm doing a lot more mentoring and coaching. And so I'd love to hear kind of his thoughts on that and where he's taking some of his energies these days.
Yeah, I'm pumped too. I've never talked to Dick, so let's bring him in.
So yeah, Dick, thanks for joining us, man. We really appreciate you jumping on, and it's been, it's been fun. I think it's been a fun ride for us, and looking forward to the new year. How was your holiday?
Terrific. I spent it, as advised, in a fairly small group with my boys and their girlfriends and my girlfriend and my brother, but we had a great time and it turned out to be a good Christmas, and but going to have a quiet New Year, but I usually think of New Year's as amateur hour anyway and try to stay out of that chaos. So,
oh man, we were just talking about that this morning, like in Vegas, they're not going to have the same big celebration, but there'll be celebrations available. Like they'll be downtown, I think's open, and some parts of the strip are going to have some close downs. And I'm like, I wouldn't go to that in a normal year. I'm certainly not going to that this year. Right. Like, I don't know if I'm going to push my luck.
I've done it a few times, the strip on New Year's Eve, but only when I stayed down there and it was fun. But if you do it a couple of times, you don't need to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. So you got any big resolutions planned? Any New Year's? You making any commitments for 21 now that hopefully the worst year ever is behind us?
Well, I've been doing on New Year's Day, I've been doing annual goals since I was in my 20s. And somewhere around 1985, I took a training program that really allowed me to take these goals and actualize them, so it's been a big part of my life. So yeah, I've already started. I'll finalize them tomorrow. But I usually do 7 to 10 kind of goals, and whether it's health goal or business goal or personal goal. And I think this year the theme is likely to be more around what can I do for the other guy. And I say that because I'm getting a little long in the tooth, so I'm more doing mentoring and doing a little more charity work. But even when I look back on my career, a lot of successes come, if not all of it, come from helping customers, get what they want, helping employees get what they want. And usually if you do that, good things happen to you. So that's kind of the theme for 21, and it's probably a good year to do it after this horrible year. So
So this might be, you might not have enough time on this podcast, but I want a short explanation of how you actualize your goals. So you said you took a training course in 1985, which is when I was born, by the way, same with Kiski.
Jesus. Yeah, that's right.
And so what are those like tips and tricks to make you actually achieve those goals that you set for yourself?
So this guy was a retired football coach, and he had a program. It's called Dream Plan Act. You dream your big dreams, you write them down in a book, you put it away. But then every year you come out and you develop game plans, and then every day you take certain action steps to achieve those plans. And you're just amazed 5 or 10 years after you wrote down some of these dreams, how many of them you had achieved. And it's that self-discipline of doing the important versus just the urgent and having actions to do it. So it's not rocket science, but you got to make it a habit to do this. And so anyway, he over a 6-week period ingrained the habits. We met with him a couple times a week, so that by the end of it, you had the habit of doing these goals and then the action steps towards the goals. And the idea is not to do things that don't contribute to your goals. Don't waste your time, right?
Yeah.
So it's been very powerful for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's similar. So this year I just recently read a book called Essentialism. So it talks a little bit about the same thing, and it's about focus, right? And then the way they phrase it, they say, write down what's essential, and then everything else, just say no to it, right? So it's like if you have your 7 to 10 goals in your example, you said, that's what I've decided is essential. Everything else can take second place, right? And so you prioritize that way, and that's what I'm working on now is like my intro to 21.
Terrific. And part of this program was when you write down everything you need to do that day, you put an A, B, or C by it. And you did the A. They couldn't go on to a B till you finished the A's, right?
Interesting.
And at the end of the day, you find out a lot of those C's you don't even need to do.
Yeah.
And so it just prioritizes your time. And at the end of the day, that's all we've got is time. That's the game we're playing. So that's always been important in my career, but in my personal life as well. And this has helped. So good luck on that, Mike. I think you'll find it powerful.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I think we were going to go in a different order, but since we're talking about it, I'm interested to hear more on the mentoring side. And you mentioned this gentleman that coached you as an old football coach. And a lot of times when I think about you, I almost think about that. It's almost like what they talk about with Bill Parcells or even Bill Belichick, where it's like these coaches have then coached coaches who are now head coaches, if that makes sense. Like they have this long coaching tree.
Yeah.
And it feels like in business leadership, you're the same way. Like you have been a CEO of multiple companies, and then a lot of folks that were working, directly for you are now CEOs in their own right. I mean, two that just spring to mind immediately with Ramesh and then John Conley, and I'm sure there's a host of others. So is there I assume that's not happenstance, right? So is there something you do intentionally that help you like mentor your direct reports to become the next CEO or the next chairman or the next leader? I mean, Gavin's another one comes to mind. So is there a secret to that?
I actually think there's about at least a dozen I've counted
right.
up. And nothing makes you feel better than people that have worked with you than to think maybe you contributed a little bit to their personal growth. But, lots of ways you can think of leadership styles or CEO styles. One way to categorize them would be the command and control style versus the love and logic or coaching style, right? And I fall more into that latter style. And I think, in my point of view, is if you're more of a coach and share your experiences and don't command and control, you attract stronger people who want to have more autonomy. And by spending time with them, listening to them, they grow better because they're forced to make their own decisions with your advice. They're not just executing on your decisions, right?
Yeah.
So I have input into their decisions, but at the end of the day, it's their call. And so I do think that helps grow strong kids and strong leaders as well. So I think but it's also been my style. I'm not sure I could have done command and control. A funny story, when I first went to Manhattan Associates, I didn't know anything about supply chain. It's a supply chain technology company.
Sure.
And the average age of the employees when I got there was 29 years old. Very bright, energetic people, all Purdue and Michigan grads and Illinois grads. And they all came in my office the day I got there. What should we do? What should we do? What should we do? I thought, I don't know. Like what do you think? And then we talked about it, and because they were used to that different style. But anyhow, it's worked for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can tell you, not at the CEO level, but just at my level, the command and control, I couldn't even imagine it. Like, I feel like I would never sleep because I'd be always so worried about, hey, are they doing exactly what I commanded them to do? Are they doing exactly this? Whereas when you just trust your team, you go, hey, I hired the right person. He or she is really good. I got to believe that they're going to carry the ball and get the job done. So I feel like it's probably personally easier to do that style as well.
It certainly is for people like us,
Yeah,
I
you
guess.
and I, yeah.
And it's, it's okay to make mistakes. That's the other thing. If you make it so hard, if somebody makes a mistake, then they won't try on their own. So you got to make it safe to make mistakes and let people understand when they should consult and when they have authority and responsibility on their own. So it's not that it's simple, but on the other hand, it's a lot of fun that way.
Sure.
That's like our love languages. So funny, Mike's my boss, FYI, for AGS as well as, yeah, me too. Nice. But he had us take these love languages. So he kind of figured out our personality traits so that he could better manage us. But I found that fascinating is every single person needs to be managed differently, in my opinion. Right. I'm kind of like the idea run fast guy. Mike just needs to keep me in a little corral, but it's always great hearing how you guys manage. I mean, you've been at the top for a long time in this game, in the gaming space, and this is the space that I'm growing up in. And so it's an honor to hear and have you on our podcast today. So we appreciate you coming on.
You bet. And I'm a big believer in that, personality profiles, industrial psychology stuff, because as you said, Landon, I think if you can adjust your leadership style to different people's needs, they'll perform better. But again, not everybody, it's not always that easy to, as the leader, realize that Sally needs different guidance than Landon needs or whatever, But if you can do that and understand what makes people tick, I think it helps your leadership style a lot. So good on you, Mike, for doing that.
Yeah, well, listen, it's all motivation too, right? Like the one thing I think, especially in sales, everyone just says, well, they're money motivated. They're money motivated. It's like, well, there's an element of you want to make some money, but some folks are like, hey, I want to win the gold medal. Like some people are just, I just want to win. You could pay me as long as it's fair. I don't really care. I'm more about winning, or I'm more about like, collaboration. So there's always just different levers. I was like, hey, money ain't always the thing. Like you want to make sure that, if Landon needs a pat on the back to feel good, then you give him one. And if the other person needs a gift that says, hey, here's a bottle of wine, thanks for working hard, then you do that. And not everybody's going to respond the same way. So having that baseline just helps you do the little nuances that I feel like keeps everybody, supercharged and running the right way.
It's funny. One of the guys I worked with fairly early in my career was Fran Tarkenton, the pro football quarterback, right? And he came into my office one day and he said, Richard, he said, people like to do meaningful work.
Right.
And it's been my experience that more than anything, people want to know that what they're doing makes a difference and contributes to the overall success and goal. And so if they can feel like they're contributing, they feel like they're winning, to your point.
Yep.
And that's even more important than money, even though money is very important to most people.
Sure.
That sense of teamwork, that sense that I'm contributing and doing something. And so that's very, very important in leadership, is people understand what winning is, and that the goals are set so that they work hard, but not so that they're unreasonable. They got to, I used to like to try to set goals that people could achieve about 70% of the time. If you set them so that it's so high, nobody cares. If you set them so they're too low, they don't motivate people.
Yeah, that's interesting. That would drive me crazy. I think like if you talk to Adam or somebody, I get A's guy, right? So like if I'm getting the goal sheet and 70% is good, I'm going, I'll be behind the scenes banging my head against the wall going, how did I get a C? Even though it was designed for me to get, 70% or whatever. It's that'd be tough. But yeah, no, that's a good one because it keeps people stretching just a little more, just a little outside the comfort zone. Yeah.
Yeah. A little outside the comfort zone.
Wow.
I think being a good leader is obviously a personality trait, and no matter what industry you're in, the leaders will rise and shine. So I'm curious how you got into the gaming business as a leader, because it's just a fascinating industry. It's a very small, unique industry. So how did you get into gaming originally?
Well, it's interesting. I was over in Paris, France, running the international operations for a software company, and I got a call from a headhunter looking for a number 2 person in a somewhat troubled gaming company that had recently gone public called Video Lottery Technologies. And I was excited because I liked, gaming is sort of founded on math, which I liked. I always thought it was an interesting business just personally, even though I wasn't ever a huge gambler. I played lots of poker, with my friends growing up in high school and college, and other card games and gambling games. So I enjoyed the whole industry. And when I got that call, it was fortuitous for me. So I got the job, and it brought me back to Atlanta where I'd had roots, and it also got me out to Montana. The company was dual headquartered. And so it was sort of a little bit, just good luck. But on the other hand, I got other calls from headhunters that I didn't respond to. This one intrigued me and got me into gaming. And so I was in gaming with that company where I started off as number 2. And then I became CEO, and I was the 7th CEO in 6 years. So it was definitely a troubled company.
Yeah.
And then had a non-compete. So then I was in supply chain technology for 5 years, and that was fun. And then back to gaming.
Wow.
That's fascinating. Yeah. You mentioned it's a troubled company, and I was laughing because when I introduced to you, not even personally, just in general, I started working at Valley about 2008, and not the greatest economic time with everything crashing. And first town hall I've ever had, I think professionally, was, I don't know where we were, but you had the whole staff and you gave the speech, and you guys, it's troubled times and we're going to get through it. It was like the best halftime speech, if you could think of it. Like, especially for me, I'm 23 or 22 at the time, going, yeah, I was nervous, but I'm not nervous anymore. Like, I'm ready to put the helmet on and run through these brick walls. Right. I mean, that was kind of the feeling. And then we were chatting, you said, that's actually a theme for you. Like, you've been in this turnaround CEO kind of role multiple times. So did that just happen, or was that always something that you ran to the fire when everyone was running away? Like, how did you end up being kind of the turnaround guy?
Well, good question. I think part of it was, having a background in finance, the hard numbers side of business came natural to me. And then maybe the second reason would be, if a company's troubled, there is an opportunity to create value. And I think you can do it faster because the troops are ready for change. Whereas if you're taking over a business that's running well, they're always going to second guess you. If a business is in trouble, people kind of want to be led, and they want to know where we're going, and they're willing to move quickly.
Yeah.
So I've always enjoyed it. In fact, that first company, the funny story goes with it. It was Video Lottery Technologies at the time. It later became Powerhouse Technologies. And
Interesting.
when I took over, it was we had this big debt to EDS, and we couldn't pay it, right? And so what are you going to do? And It was a tough situation. We were going to go bankrupt. I just told them, we're not going to pay it. And well, we're going to stop your service. I said, well, our customers are all state governments. Do you really want to do that? They said,
right.
No, I didn't want to. So they summoned us out to their headquarters, which was called the God Pod outside of Dallas, big building intended to intimidate. And many of the people at EDS at that time were ex-Marines, right? So our point guy has us wait for an hour because he's finishing his therapy session, right? Literally had the therapist come to the office. So then he has a meeting, reads us the riot act, takes us to dinner. And over dinner, to show us what's going to happen to us if we don't pay our debt, he picks up his wine glass and he takes a bite out of it and chews the glass and swallows it. Right?
This sounds like a Mike move.
Yeah, I mean, I wish. I'm not that tough. I'm not eating glass. I don't care who it is. Jeez.
Anyway, so it was. I mean, there's only so much you could do to us. So we kind of chuckled. And one of our board members still has that glass today. She was handled it perfectly. She said, "Well, can I keep that glass?" Anyway,
we didn't.
Good. We worked out a deal and took over that part of the business from them. But it was tough, and been a couple other times close to bankruptcy. But that said, that's when you rally the troops. And 2008 was a great example. I mean, we have another tough situation right now, right? Yeah. And usually, I've found that companies that are well managed really gain share during a downturn, because when things are going good and the wind's at your back, any team can do okay, right? But when things get difficult is when real leadership shows. So in a downturn like this, I think or at least on certain times, and especially in gaming where a lot of people have had to do layoffs and salary cuts, if you can be wise about your investment and take a few reasonably bold steps, it's a good opportunity to gain share versus those that just are randomly cutting people and randomly making changes to try to survive. So interesting times.
Yeah. And when you're looking outside in, so you're looking at the different landscapes and you're saying, if they're well managed, they can do well. What types of things are you looking for? Maybe outside going, oh, that was smart. Like that makes them well managed versus not. Like where are some of the keys or the tripping points, or like, what are you looking for to qualify someone as well managed in that scenario?
Well, and this is what investors in public companies are always trying to do.
Sure.
And to me, it's trying to figure out who's full of BS and who's not. Like, in
Yeah.
other words, who walks the talk. And usually it takes some period of time to see who says, this is what we're going to do. And then they go do it.
Right.
And sometimes you have to change the roadmap, et cetera. So I don't think it's easy to identify the teams. It's almost you find out after the fact, right?
Got it. Yeah.
And you kind of know when you're in it, like, at AGS where you guys are, I mean, you kind of have a feel for whether you're making the right moves or not. And are you gaining ground in this tough time or not? You'll figure it out. But it's not easy to determine from the outside until after the fact.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting.
What do you think some of the biggest, so call it, I'm not even going to name a company, but if I'm a company and I've been fiscally responsible and we were doing well and the pandemic struck, what do you think some of the biggest opportunities coming out of COVID-19 are for the gaming space in terms of being prepared?
Well, one thing people have to assess, and by the way, that people have been preaching the demise of, say, gaming machines for years because of, the players are too old. It's only old people. It's not appeal to young people. But what we always found is that young people eventually get older and they don't look as good in a bikini anymore, and their kids
Yeah.
are grown. So they go and they like to play gaming machines as opposed to spend their money on the opposite sex or on nightclubs. So,
Right.
Right now we have this issue of what are you going to do about, say, online gaming at home versus physical facilities. And there's going to be a balance, but I think trying to gauge, is there going to be a growth in gaming because people will be gaming more on sports and at home and keep up their gaming in physical facilities, or will facilities gaming go down at the growth of at home and mobile sport? But my belief is whatever happens, it'll be just like internet shopping. It was 20 years of internet shopping. We only got to 12% of retail was online.
Yeah.
So I think casinos are here and going to be strong for a long time. But I do think any business plan needs to accommodate more and more mobile and more ability to game away from the facility as regulators get more and more comfortable with that. From a technology point of view, I think it's going to be, you got to be prepared for, cloud-based technologies. And again, regulators got to get around that. But the other basic thing you could be doing right now is, are you investing in the right kind of content if you're a gaming company, and the right kind of technology if you're a technology supplier? If you're an operator, I think operators have figured out to get close to their gamers again. They're just not going to make money on restaurants and entertainment. So there's a lot of lessons, subtle lessons to be learned that coming out of this. Every business can be just a little bit better managed in this area, that area. And did you make the right investments now so that when the buyers are buying again or the players are playing again, you capitalize on it and you gain share?
That's fascinating. And even brick and mortar has to kind of go through this same growing pains, because if I'm a brick and mortar casino right now, I'm trying to figure out how to capitalize on those people playing from home. How can we capitalize? How can we retain guests? How we can take our brand and put it online, which is what on the other side, which the vendors are doing. They're trying to figure out how to capitalize as well. So they're all going to have to meet in the middle. Is it gonna dilute share of? I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, you hope to grow the pie, but if not, you want to make sure that your share of the pie grows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And then how far do you look for that? So I guess what I'm asking, like, I think about football when you say the quarterback doesn't throw the ball to the receiver, he throws the ball to where the receiver is going to be. So when you're talking about investing, how far down the road are you trying to guess and say, okay, we think the player will be in a year here, because if we start today, then it takes time. It's not like you can snap your finger and whether it's a game or a cashless or sports that it's going to be open tomorrow. So I think like you're probably trending out to the future. Like, have you noticed, is there a certain window looking forward that's a little easier to rely on? Because I'm assuming 3 years is impossible. 3 months might be too close. Like, where's the sweet spot and how far out do you look?
Typically 3 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, and I say that because I think longer than 3 for technology is really hard to do.
Sure.
And yet when you're making investments, it's hard to reap any rewards in 4, 5, 6 months, especially if you've got regulatory hurdles when you've got with a lot of gaming. So you can start reaping rewards if you make an investment today, maybe in a year and a half. and you want to make sure you're making the investment. So for years 2 and 3. So when I say no longer than 3, but years 2 and 3. So it's a little like your analogy, where's the field going to be? But certain things are still going to be true, right? So good game content's still going to play.
Right.
Mobile's going to keep growing, right?
Yep.
Sports is going to keep growing. So there's tailwinds if you invest in those spaces, but there's more uncertainty in those spaces too. You got newer competitors, et cetera. So those are kind of the judgment calls you got to make, and you got to ask yourself, how much money am I willing to invest in what spaces? What does the return look like? Judging the profitability of sports betting is not easy either. It's historically been very low margin for casinos. Right. But with in-game betting, more emotional bets, you can have a lot more profitability in sports betting. So what's that going to look like? This is not easy. There's a lot of hype around sports right now.
You're talking like prop bets, like in-game prop bets.
Yeah, those can be very profitable.
Yeah, I lose a lot of money on those. So I'll be playing. I always assume my team's next to score, that kind of thing, and not usually. So that's I can see where they have a higher hold on stuff like that.
I think it was Lloyd Danzig, Mike, that said that Europe right now, I mean, they're decades ahead of us in terms of their sports betting programs, but 70% of all their bets are prop bets. And then when you look at the US's market, I think it was like 10%, don't quote me, but it was a much smaller margin than in Europe, because they're just so much more advanced, and they've kind of like, I think prop bets are more fun anyways. It's kind of like a shoot.
It's coming. Yeah. And that's going to be important for our sports betting to do well.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. I was going to say, Len, I think part of that's just availability. Like even living in Vegas, I'll open certain apps and you don't find in-game action very often. Like you won't find a lot of those. Super Bowl, they'll dial it up and you can bet on anything. But for everybody else, it feels like just regular games. It's not there. Whereas to your point, in Europe, they're used to in-game soccer, in-game, whatever else they follow over there, bet cricket, right, and stuff. So it's just there. So the players have the option. Here, I don't feel like we have the option yet, but as it grows, it sounds like, that's the key, or one of the keys to making a little extra money on the sports side.
Yeah, that's coming.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, so what are you most excited? Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say
this video version is so different because now we can't chop it up like we used to. But what are you most excited about in terms of gaming? What's coming? What excites you?
Well, I one maybe kind of boring, but I think a reattachment to the gambler, in my opinion, and I've been somewhat vocal about this for 10 or 12 years, is when that downturn that Mike talked about in 08 and 09 and 10 was there, the operators got a lot smarter about cost, but one of the things they consistently did was tighten the machines. It started with penny slots, which had higher holds. And so then between more diverse table games and increased holds on slots and penny games, which have higher holds, a player's budget got used up much more quickly, right? Yeah. So somebody who used to have a $600 budget and it lasted them from Thursday to Sunday, it now lasted them from Thursday to Friday night or Saturday morning, and it wasn't much fun. So instead of coming to a casino, 4 times a year or 2 days a week, they were going 1 day a week or twice a year, right? So I think one of the things this COVID has done, it's operators realize that their core players generate a lot of profit for them, and they need to take care of them, which means to me a little bit better return on the play. You don't want to take their money too fast. They're still going to spend it. They're just going to have more fun, spend a longer time. That's one thing I'm hopeful that comes out of the downturn. The second thing is in general, the pace of technology, whether it's 5G, it's mobile, it's sports, it's cloud computing, it's data analytics. I mean, it's just hard to imagine everything that gaming could be even 3 or 4 years from now, as more and more of those technologies get rolled out and deployed. And as we know in gaming, the problem is that the regulatory environment keeps us a couple of years behind.
Right.
And so we want to try to keep regulators current. They're doing a little better now than they used to, so that we can deploy, cloud-based technologies faster, so that we can deploy 5G faster, so that mobile and sports betting can get adopted faster.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And then you were talking about investments and all this different technology. So you actually, I don't know how recently, the last couple of years or so, started your own investing company. So a couple of questions on that, but it's called The Groop. So GROOP. How'd you name it? I'm always fascinated when I see some of these names. I'm like, how'd we do that? Like, was there couple beers involved? Was it just, hey, we could patent it, or, you know, we could register this? Like, how'd that all come together?
Yeah, a lot of decisions I made after a couple of beers. That wasn't one of them. But yeah, it happened to be, first of all, we've talked about this earlier on the podcast, that style wise, a little more on coaching and collaboration than I am on command and control. So the idea was, as investors, we'd work with you as a group, as opposed to, hard line, do it our way, have one playbook. And then GROOP, because to your point, you could get that website, I could get that name, whereas GROUP I couldn't get. No chance, so it's that simple. We work collaboratively, and that's the only way we get the spelling.
No, I love it. It makes sense.
It's a great name, Mike. Why don't you tell the people what we were going to name MaxBet when we did? Yeah, we didn't obviously make that decision, which was a good decision. What was our first pick?
So it was actually Lannon's recommendation, and he almost had me sold on it. He goes, "We should call it Machine Hustle," and I was like, "Okay." Like, so because at the beginning we're all hyped up because we're out there slot machine guys, and we think we're hustlers in terms of working hard and all that. So we're like, "Yeah." Then we told two people, and they're like, I don't know, that's not. No one's gonna listen to that. We're like, "All right, what do we get back to the drawing board and just keep it simple." We're like, MaxBet, everyone realizes it, so that's how we came to be. But
there's a lot of 2 or 3 come to mind bad connotations of Machine Hustle right away.
Right. Yeah.
But it was kind of fun. But
we realized it didn't get more than a couple days, I think. So we were on a road trip and we were talking about it. And then, like I said, we casually mentioned everybody's face. Their words were all nice. They're like, "Oh yeah." But then their face was like, brutal. Let's not do that. So it was, we switched pretty early, but
it's tough naming a company.
Oh,
it's tough finding the URLs, and it takes a long process.
Well, it's funny you said it, because that Video Lottery Technologies was the first public company I was CEO of. We had 4 gaming subsidiaries, and we no longer were just Video Lottery. So we needed to rename it and just keep that one subsidiary named Video Lottery. So we went around and around with our marketing team, and for every person on the committee to try to name the company, everybody had a different name, so you couldn't get any consensus. So finally, one day I'm sitting up there in our offices in Montana, and I'm looking at a map, and I see on there Powerhouse, because it showed where there was electrical powerhouse in the forest, right? And I go, "Oh, screw it, that's it," So nice. The second place was Guerrilla Games. Thank goodness we didn't do that. Yeah, Powerhouse worked out fine, So
that's a fun one. It's easy to remember. It's like it kind of has a visual. Like in Powerhouse is to me something strong, something you want to either be or be a part of. So it's a good connotation. Guerrilla Games could go either way, I guess, but it's fascinating. And it's crazy how many times you'll hear stuff like that where you're going, I was just driving and there it was on a sign and I made that my company, or that's my band name. You hear a lot of these famous bands going, I don't know, that's what it was. We just named it after the street we grew up on, or who knows, right? So that's wild. So when you're talking about as the group and you're investing now, and I'm assuming somewhat early stage startups, right? And back to your mentoring side and your coaching side, I would imagine a lot of these folks that are running the companies are maybe not tenured CEOs. They're probably brilliant technologists or product, I assume, and I could be wrong. So when you're looking at these guys, is there like a first step, like a first words of wisdom as to them saying, "Hey, as you're growing this company and as it accelerates, here's where maybe you focus from a leadership side or from just a maybe general business CEO side," or what are some of your first steps with the new companies that you take? Like, where do you start?
Well, it certainly varies a lot by person, almost to your point earlier about the industrial psychology side of all this. What's that person's particular strengths and weaknesses? I do think there is some truth in the quote that, it's lonely at the top. I think so. It is important to develop a network of, whether it's the folks that work for you, your board who you work for, or other associates that you can reach out to. You don't have to have all the answers. Like a lot of, especially young CEOs, feel like they got to have the answer, and you don't really have to. You have to together come up with an answer, and it's okay if it doesn't work, fix it, but don't debate it too long. Do it, try it, fix it, right? So I would say the number one thing is just, relax, go ahead and collaborate, and don't have to have all the answers. Would probably be the one consistent thing, but it varies all over by person. I mean, one of the companies I'm most excited about, we just raised a big round from Excel Ventures, one of the best top venture capital firms in the country. And that CEO's 67 years old. And he'd been in sales his whole career. He's working this company for 10 years. And I invested a couple of years ago. He's doing lights out. And you know what the product is? It's software that helps sales forces do the return on investment for customers. So that instead of, and Mike and you and Landon may remember this, pre-2008 or 9, most all gaming sales was sort of relationship based.
100%.
It quickly evolved between 8, 9, and 10 to very consultative, very data driven. And so again, this is true in every big purchase, is increasingly the CFO on the buyer side gets involved. So anyway, that product helps sales forces be more productive. And it's, we had great customers like, Salesforce and ServiceNow and Equifax, a lot of great customers.
Awesome. What's the name of that company? I'm just curious.
It's called Decision Link, and
Decision Link. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, based in Atlanta. And a guy that used to work for me was using their product and said, "It's a great product, Dick. Come take a look at it." And we invested and went on the board, and it's been good fun.
Awesome.
I think that way of looking at games now is even more true after the pandemic. I think people are going to be really dialed on looking at data and what works on their floor and what doesn't work. A lot of these customers are figuring out that they can make as much money with half of their machines turned on if, with their best games and placing them correctly. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how the buying patterns shift after the dust kind of settles. So
it is. And it's a very, very interesting set of dynamics or data that the casino has to look at, because clearly what they've been doing more and more is trialing games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so if a game performs well, great. But there has to be the right mix on a floor too, right? You can't just have all the latest hot games because they appeal to a certain player. You got to have, you got to have some video poker. You got to have some penny games. You have a mix, right? So you can't just be driven by one 30-day trial of how a game performs. So that's where the judgment comes in too, and that's what makes it fun for salespeople and fun for customers.
Yeah, for sure.
Like just the ever-evolving jigsaw puzzle we're all trying to solve, right? How do you piece it together? What's the optimum mix? Yeah. And yeah, you're right. It can't all be 2020 new product, right? You need the old school, some of the steppers, some of the, like, I can't imagine how many first buffaloes or first quick hits are still out there being hammered, absolutely just crushing, versus, they're still hanging up there with their 2020, 2021 counterparts. So no, it's a good point. And it'll be interesting, especially as we move forward talking about the CFO side. I think in terms of behind the scenes products like that, I mean, I don't know Decision Link personally, but we use Salesforce at our company. I know a lot of folks are using Salesforce, a lot of folks are using different analytics, and that will start to be the skill set that you need, is like, how can you not only maintain a relationship, but at the same time present numbers and talk intelligently about what the data is telling you and what that story is, not just, hey, how's your golf game and what'd you do for dinner and the whole thing, right? So it'll be a little bit of both, I think, moving forward. So that'll be interesting to see which technologies evolve. Yep,
it's going to be fun. And of course, it's near and dear to you guys because it's in sales, but I've always had an affinity for the sales side of the business. It's tougher than most people think. Like you say, people think it's all about entertainment, but it's increasingly become very, data-driven, consultative, and relationships. It's the whole mix, right? So.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's what's interesting. I mean, we do get to have a little fun, so no one should feel bad for us, but the data side is absolutely, every day I feels like it's more and more. And then what's harder, I'd say, especially looking at like a larger region, like it seems like regionally they may operate the same, but when I'm going up to Canada versus SoCal versus Arizona, right, the way people use data or the types of data points they find valuable are not the same. So you may say, hey, one guy's all about house average and win. One person's all about occupancy. One person's all about, and you go, okay, so now you have to be able to speak intelligently to 50 different sets of data, not just the one, right? Because if everyone was using house average, it'd be real easy to understand. But, it's also, evolving into who thinks what's important and, where do we go from there?
Interesting. I'm looking to make an investment actually in a data analytics company that's in the gaming space.
Yeah.
And it obviously has a lot of customization so that the operator can choose their own metrics that are important to them, because not only our market's different, but people have different philosophies and different leadership and management styles and management beliefs. And that's what makes it interesting, right? Wouldn't be fun if every operator did just the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask you what company that is, or are we keeping that secret?
Not until he's in. He doesn't want to drive up the price until he owns it.
There you go.
Come on, buddy.
All right, come on. I got to see if I can sneak some in there.
Good try. Good
Yeah,
try.
well, you know.
Goalie. Can't let you do that to our guy here.
Maybe in a month
Gotta
I'll sneak it to you then. But
There we go.
not
We'll
right now.
announce it.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Oh,
Well, awesome. This is great. This is so different on the video version. So I'm still trying to get used to this as we do this interview, but it's a whole different program. So Mike, where are we on time? Because I can't see time, and I used to be able to.
yeah, me neither. I think we're about half an hour, 35 minutes in, so we have time. But I was just going to ask Dick. So I think we kind of went through a lot of the stuff we pre-talked about. But is there anything else that you're either working on and or just interested in that you want to talk about or discuss prior to us jumping into some of the gambling stuff?
Well, I mean, right now I've got one of my investments is a drug and alcohol rehab in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And after a couple of years of struggling, we kind of figured it out, and it's doing very well. And I'm actually taking a look at another company now that, one of the very difficult things about people that have addiction problems is taking that couple of months out of your life to go get the treatment, So this particular guy has built a company around being able to do it online, right? And it's not for everybody, obviously. It comes a lot around life coaching. So I think there's a lot of value that we can add to his business, and he sees that too. So that's a very interesting investment because it leverages technology, it leverages social media, and yet it's helping people and making money. And so, I've had a couple other companies that try to have some social good while making money.
Yeah.
And so that's one I'm excited about. I'm looking at the two gaming companies. One is in data analytics, and the other is in distributed gaming. So a lot of stuff out there that's pretty exciting. But trying to, as if you're in venture capital, which is kind of what I'm doing, you look at 10 to find one. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Curious. So does that fit your model for your 2021 goal, which was giving back? So you seeked out a company that was giving back to the community in terms of helping addicts recover. And that was a company that you found through that.
Yes. And it is. And I started about 5 years ago. We founded another company that was trying to keep people out of the criminal justice system. So we started with shoplifters, which is an entry-level crime. And we got Walmart and others as a customer to turn their shoplifters over to a personal goal-setting training program to try to help people realize the error of their ways, and then they could avoid the criminal justice system. Unless they got caught again and again, we had them in our database. Well, the company was doing great, but the state of California decided that they didn't like it. That I guess their view was that only the state can help people, I guess. So they sued us, and it just scared our customer base. So it's really too bad because it was a terrific business, and it helped a fairly good percent of the people, not everybody, but again, the expense of going in the criminal justice system is so high. So anyway, this would be another terrific business, even if it only helped 20% of the people. I think most rehabs are successful 50 to maybe as high as 60 or 70% of the time. But if you could get a reasonable success rate and people doing it online, it's a big savings to the system and a big savings to these people's lives, which sometimes the embarrassment of the job implications of taking 2 months off to go to rehab, they just don't work very well. So anyway, it's part of giving back, but it's also, we intend to make money doing it.
It kind of goes like you'd rather have 30% of a massive group of people than 60% of a smaller demographic of people. So that's
exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Again, not for everybody, but it's an exciting business because I think there's a real market for it. And again, this whole work at home has led us to believe we can do a lot more like remote than we thought we could. So.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot more people that need help now from the pandemic than you would think, because everybody was staying at home drinking. I know I was. What else are you going to do? I'm home by myself in that great state of California that you talked about, and nobody's going anywhere. So
the in-home wellness is
only
big.
Twiddle your thumbs so much. Oh, that's great.
That's wild.
Yeah. And both of those businesses, the one that didn't do so well or was doing well for a while, and this new one, they actually use a lot of the same things we talked about earlier in terms of, do you have goals? Do you have a way to attack your daily plan that allows you to be strong versus, and nothing against AA, because that works for a lot of folks, and Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous works for a lot of people. But those programs start off with, I'm an addict, I'm a problem. Whereas this guy's program starts off with, I'm in charge of my life. What am I going to do with it? Right. Yeah. Just a different way that appeals to some people versus the other way. Right. Yeah. So I'm in charge. Why am I letting this happen in my life? Okay, I can take control of it. Let's help me do it with this online program. Right. So we'll see.
Yeah, just flipping the narrative. It's like a positive. It's like, hey, you're making this choice, right? You're not a victim to it. You made the choice. Let's go make the choice the other way. That makes sense. That would resonate more for me. I mean, fortunately, I'm not addicted. I don't believe in anything, but that style would resonate for me. It's like, hey, why are you making the choice to be lazy or to do the thing that you're not doing versus you could take action and own it, right? So that's interesting.
Well, speaking of vices.
Well, hold on, man. One question before we get into that. So selfishly, Dick, I got to know, I hear you talking about all these investments you're in, and that sounds like it's keeping you busy, but do you think there's a time, and however long it might be, where you're back in the saddle as CEO of a major gaming company, or do you think you're staying venture kind of investment guy for the future?
Yeah, I'm enjoying the coach mentor role. Yeah. I'm enjoying playing in multiple sandboxes, right? And having done that CEO thing 3 times and had opportunities, obviously, to do it more times. By the way, I wouldn't be adverse if necessary to step in for a couple of months if something happened somewhere. But by and large, I like this new role. Yeah. It was by design, and so.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds great. I just never know, because it feels like they always call in the closers out of the bullpen when they need them. So I feel like, a lot of times these big companies are looking for the Gavin. I'm sure there's a dozen or so other names I'm not thinking of, right? But so I was just curious if you're still in the bullpen, or if you're going, no, I'm up in the box now, calling the shots from a different angle. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's taking some discipline, but that was by design. Yeah.
Awesome.
And like I said, I got my 2 boys. They're 23, 20. One of them's got a great business. The other one's finishing up college. And so I'm enjoying, they're kind of part of this group thing too. And so working with them, working with the other companies, it's just a lot of fun.
Beautiful.
That's fun.
All right, Lana, let's get into some vices.
Yeah, let's talk about gambling. So we're in the gambling business, and we ask all of our guests to share a gambling story. And it doesn't have to be this wild, crazy story. It can just be a time when you went out and had a memorable moment in the casino. More related around gambling, the better.
Yeah. No, I definitely do. In fact, 2 come to mind. One was fun and one was less fun. But for my 50th birthday, I was living in Atlanta at the time, but still loved Vegas. We had my 50th birthday party in Vegas with about 50 people. It was a lot of fun. Went to shows and golfed, and one night after dinner, a friend of mine from Montana with his string tie and cowboy boots led us all to the craps table. Oh, yeah. And whenever you hear the big roars in the casino, sometimes it's a slot jackpot, sometimes it's an exciting blackjack bust with a dealer, but it's often craps. And we got rolling, and here we had a table of all your friends. Everybody's winning, everybody's having fun. And, it's a complicated game. A lot of people don't know what they were doing, but anyway, it was a blast. Well, that was fun. The second one was, so this goes back to when I was running that powerhouse company. One of our subsidiaries was had racetrack technology. So if you know racetracks, not only are they stressed now, they've been stressed for years, right? Yeah. So very low cost. There were only 2 big players in the space. So we had hundreds of racetracks at a very low cost, and we had only 5 developers developing this fairly complex software, right? Win, play, show, trifecta, boxes, wheels, very complex bets. Yeah. And so we have 5 guys in Southern California doing all the R&D. And the way we managed it was we put out a new version of the code PC-based software every year, and you had to use it. You couldn't have your own version of it. That's the way we kept the cost down. Well, in addition to all these small tracks, we did all the Kentucky track. So when the company's getting bought, between the agreement and the closing date, Stan Fulton, who was a very mercurial guy in gaming, God rest his soul, wanted to go to the Kentucky Derby and experience it with our software managing the odds, right?
Nice, yeah.
So we're all dressed up and everybody's having a good time except me, because if you looked at the capacity load on the machine, it was, going along, and then on Derby day, it just like exploded.
Redlined, yeah, to the top.
So you just never knew if that year's version of the code was going to bust on the Derby race. And so anyway, it was a nail biter, and my head of sales was there, my head of R&D was there. We're all sweating over the machine, but we got through it. Yeah. But it didn't work. But I'll never forget it. It was my least favorable gambling experience, even over losing money at times. So,
can you imagine having to unravel that crash?
Oh my!
People putting that would be
on
the
Derby
cleanup
day,
on that. I would just run. I'd go to Mexico. I'd be like, "See you guys, I'm out."
I mean, 100,000 people, all dressed up, all betting on that one big race, and then my buyer of the company ready to bust the deal if the machine didn't work. So anyway, it was pretty stressful. I wish he didn't want to go. I mean, I would go every year anyway, just to sweat over the machine, but it was different when he was there with me.
Right. Yeah. When you got so much riding on that one outcome, you're like, okay, bud, we just got to keep it together for a couple hours here, and then we're smooth sailing. So yeah, that's wild. Oh man. So the other thing we do here is we ask everybody, we issue the max bet challenge. I think but Aaron Ezra actually challenged you, and graciously you accepted. So we appreciate that. So, and I know you have dozens of interesting connections and people that you probably come to mind, but when you think about maybe somebody for the future, who do you want to see come on in the future episode of the podcast?
Well, there's so many good characters in and out of gaming that I know, but one guy that I think doesn't get much press is Jim Allen, who runs the Seminoles, right?
Okay, yeah.
And when you think of the complexity of managing the politics, both at the tribe and in the state government and federal level, and then leveraging the Hard Rock brand, they're probably the most profitable gaming company in the world. I don't know for sure, maybe not, but they're in the top couple.
They're up there. Yeah.
Jim is somebody who, is not in the limelight a lot, but it's interesting. Tim Wilmot, who retired as CEO of Penn, had a great run at Caesars, great run at Penn, 2 great runs are not coincidental. He's a great operator. Always respected him. And on the more entrepreneurial side, Kirk Sanford in payments a hot area. Kirk was at Global Cash, and then, Sightline. He's just left Sightline. He's got a third entrepreneurial venture called Game Plus that might be interesting to talk to him. And John Wolf at House Advantage is a great guy who understands technology and understands players and data marketing. So those are 4 guys in gaming I'd be happy to reach out to. And
yeah, we would appreciate it. I mean, those are some huge names. So any help you can give us, we'll take it. And yeah, we love it. I mean, we're having a blast talking to everybody and learning everybody's story. And especially, like you said, some of the gents that aren't as popular, like not so popular, but like they don't do press every day or all the time.
Right.
I find those stories fascinating. It's like, why is no one else hearing about this? Like, what's, why has it stayed a secret so long? Or maybe it's just personality, but no, that'd be fantastic. Any of those guys, if you could help us, we would love it.
I love that. That's always, go ahead, Dick.
No, I was going to say good luck, because I think this is great to get a little broader exposure to what's going on in gaming, different people's perspective. And now people are at home a little more, and they want to stay current. So good on you for starting this.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Dick, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on. It's been a blast. Like I said, it's an honor for me. I mean, it's weird how when you're young, I feel like when you're 21, 22 and you join a company, the CEO is a celebrity, right? He might be a great guy or a bad guy, but he is the man, right? And so for me, that was you, right? At Bally. And so for now, however many years later, to come full circle and be able to just chat with you like this is an honor, man. So I really appreciate you doing that.
Well, Mike, it's great to watch you grow and bring along people like Landon. And if you get off your butt, maybe I'll have a 13th or 14th CEO that work for me,
That's it. Yeah. I'll try to work a little harder. It's take some offline advice on how to jump to that next level, but yeah, it's perfect.
Great. All right, guys. Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Thanks, Dick.
Well.
Thanks. Good fun.
See you guys.
Bye for now.
Bye.